The housing crisis in the U.S. can feel like an unsolvable puzzle of political infighting, zoning restrictions, and rising interest rates. We talk of housing as something we navigate alone, a commodity that we rent or buy, subject to the whims of a volatile market. But halfway around the globe in Thailand, there's a world-renowned program that treats housing as a collective right. It's a model that proves our individualist approach to housing isn't the only way. This is Berkeley Voices, a UC Berkeley News podcast. I'm Anne Bryce. Housing and community development expert Hayden Shelby first studied this policy as a Ph.D. student in UC Berkeley's Department of City and Regional Planning in 2014.
Baan Mankong, a secure housing program. That's the name of this policy. It works through communities. They get money for housing and also rights to their land. And so in order to do that, they don't lend or give grants to individuals. People have to form these very discrete communities. They have to form cooperatives.
Launched in 2003, it's a type of cooperative housing where a group of people, sometimes as many as a few hundred households, not only share land, but also manage their own budget and take on collective debt to pay back low-interest loans. This model turns the threat of eviction into an opportunity for ownership. By pooling their resources, residents can negotiate for land rights as a single legal entity, creating a mutual safety net that prevents foreclosure and displacement, even during economic downturns.
They take out money together as a community, and so they have collective debt, which is a huge source of stress.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a huge amount of trust among the people, and sometimes you're talking about 300 households together that all have this collective debt, and they have to administer it themselves. And so it's this really onerous, complicated process that requires building a concrete community, a legal community where people are bound to each other through law and debt.
Hayden says it's similar to community land trusts or cooperatives that you might find in the U.S. But in Thailand, they've managed to scale it up in a way that most places in the world haven't. As a graduate student, Hayden wondered if a model like this, where people share responsibility and make decisions together, could help alleviate the U.S. housing crisis. To understand the ins and outs of how the program worked, Hayden knew that she had to be in Thailand, where she could learn from housing experts on the ground. She'd already had some training in the Thai language during the Peace Corps years before, but to do this particular field research required a much higher level of fluency.
I needed to be able to really immerse myself, and I didn't want to rely on translators, and I wanted to do this through building relationships, just as I had in the Peace Corps. And so that required me to have a very specialized level of Thai that was both academic and policy oriented. And so I could, read policy documents and engage with the Thai academic literature, because there was more written on Thai than there was in English on this particular policy and these issues.
So she enrolled in advanced Thai classes in Berkeley's Department of Southeast Asian Studies. To accommodate specialized instruction in advanced Thai, Berkeley partnered with the University of Wisconsin-Madison to offer a joint virtual curriculum.
We were able to tailor our lessons and our projects that we did in class to what we were planning to do our research on. When you're doing these less spoken languages, you really get to know your instructors very well, because it's a small group of you. So there are those personal relationships that kind of help move your research forward as well.
In the summers of 2014 through 2016, Hayden went to Bangkok to study the Secure Housing Program. This research was especially important because the program at the time was being scaled up to include canal-side communities, which were going through a period of upheaval. Following the historic 2011 floods, the government had launched an aggressive campaign to clean up the waterways, an initiative that often meant needing to relocate the informal homes that lined the canals. Hayden says that being able to understand and speak the technical Thai used to describe the program's complex financial and social structures proved invaluable, not only so she could make sense of the material, but also so she could connect with community members.
There's something really magical that happens like the first time you have a conversation with someone in a different language. People open up when they know that you have made this really deep and difficult investment in learning their language. There's something that lets people, for one thing, just on a logistical level, to be able to talk directly to you and not be able to have to go through a translator. I think that as a researcher now, that is incredibly important for me because it establishes a rapport that you really can't through a translator. We gain more from having people who are deeply knowledgeable about other places and other people.
Berkeley is one of America's top institutions when it comes to the breadth and depth of its world languages program. It offers courses in over 60 different languages, including ones that are less commonly taught, like Thai, Urdu, Ukrainian, and Swahili, among dozens of others. For more than 150 years, the program has prepared Berkeley students for a range of careers in fields like diplomacy, translation, education, and international development. Penny Edwards is a professor of Southeast Asian Studies at Berkeley. She speaks Mandarin Chinese, Cambodian, and Burmese, and worked in international finance, peacekeeping, and publishing before joining the Berkeley faculty in 2007. Did you find when you were learning these different languages that you understood the culture and the society more deeply too? Do you see those as connected?
Absolutely. In so many ways, through different, not only the nuance of language, and that phrase is often used, but expressions of humor, and of course, the broader field of body language and the sort of do's and don'ts that you can really only learn, which are so crucial in communications and international relations, especially when conducted at the interpersonal level, one-on-one and over interactions.
By taking her Berkeley training out of the classroom and into the communities of Bangkok, Hayden was able to turn academic study into a lived experience, allowing her to move from being an outside observer to a trusted collaborator. During her field research in Bangkok, Hayden attended hours-long policy meetings, interviewed housing experts, and went on community visits. To help decipher all that she was learning, she worked with a local tutor.
We sat down and did formal lessons. A lot of those lessons were based on things that I had encountered in the previous week of doing my preliminary field work. Things that I was like picking up in the process of talking to people that I was like, I don't get this word. Here's this like particular sentence construction that only happens when I'm like reading official government documents because Thai has a lot of different registers of formality. So you almost have to learn different levels of language to be able to like read a policy document.
To support this intensive study, Hayden was awarded 2 foreign language and area studies fellowships, known as FLOSS fellowships. Funded by the now discontinued federal Title VI program, the fellowship allowed Hayden to take the time she needed to move beyond basic conversation and reach professional fluency.
Sitting down and talking to people takes time. It's not terribly expensive, but I need that time to do really good research.
Penny says the fellowship helped her bring top students, like Hayden, to the campus.
It's been incredibly important in diversifying campus intellectually, linguistically, and in terms of perspective diversity. There's one thing deep language learning gives you is really good problem-solving skills. It really sharpens cognitive skills and the ability to translate, not in the literal sense of necessarily across 2 languages, but translate across different contexts and situations and, to think outside the box in any given situation.
For Hayden, who is now an assistant professor at the University of Cincinnati, being adaptive and receptive to how other people live has been essential in her housing and community development work.
My primary goal is I go in, even for community members on the ground, I say Baan Mankong has been, this program is pretty famous, and I'm trying to understand how it works on the ground. That breaks down the expert, non-expert barrier. It makes me not able to sort of parachute in and try to give advice because I'm able to see all of the nuances in it. And I really am able to go in and say, okay, what can we learn from this? That's always my attitude, is that I'm, everybody has something to teach me. And when I speak their language, they're able to.
After more than a decade of research on the secure housing program in Thailand, Hayden is now widely considered an expert on the program in the U.S. Today, it has transformed thousands of informal Thai settlements into legal neighborhoods, giving residents a permanent claim to the land that many of them have lived on for generations. People often ask Hayden if the secure housing program could work in the U.S., where the culture is highly individualistic, as opposed to Thailand's more collectivist mindset.
I think that this type of program is a very good option for some people all around the world. There is a certain type of person in a certain type of situation where doing this sort of collective housing meets their needs. And so I think that these programs should exist and we should have them more widely available in lots of parts of the world.
But she says it's not the one answer that'll fix the housing crisis, but rather a piece of the housing solution.
This is not, the sort of advocate's dream that we're all going to live in collective housing and have these beautiful non-commodified housing options and live in community. I can pretty safely say this does work really well for some people, and it's also not the best option for a lot of people. And so there needs to be other housing policies. But that being said, if I could find a bunch of people to build a community land trust with here, I would totally do it. I've seen the people who live in those communities in Thailand, and I think to myself, I would love to live in one of those. That's for me. And I wish we had that option in the US that was more widespread.
Hayden says it can be easy to think about community development as one-sided, getting stuck asking ourselves, what are we doing for them? Instead of asking, what can we learn from them?
There is a big conversation happening in the US right now about loneliness and the need for community. Community is hard. Community involves disputes. That's one of the things that I've learned from this program. It doesn't always work. It can fall apart, and somebody is always unhappy with somebody else. But I've also seen people really become something closer to what we would call family through this program when it does work. I think that in the US right now, we're at a moment where there are people who, across the political spectrum, who are willing to have a conversation about how do we build community in our society. And thinking about how we rearrange our built space and our notions of ownership and how we live together can be a bigger piece of that conversation. And I think that we could learn from this program and that to that extent.
I'm Ann Bryce, and this is Berkeley Voices, a UC Berkeley News podcast from the Office of Communications and Public Affairs. Music by Blue Dot Sessions. You can find Berkeley Voices wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, at Berkeley News. This is the 4th episode of our new season of Berkeley Voices. In 6 episodes, we hear from UC Berkeley scholars working on life-changing research, and the people whose lives are changed by it. New episodes come out on the first Thursday of every month, from November through April. We also have another show, Berkeley Talks, that features lectures and conversations at Berkeley. You can find all of our podcast episodes with transcripts and photos on UC Berkeley News at news.berkeley.edu/podcasts.